Hello everyone, my name is Biji Suresh. I am faculty in Silver Hills Public School, Kozhikode. I am working as postgraduate teacher in biology, and today it's my pleasure to take for you the topic Control and Coordination, which is chapter 7 in class 10 biology CBSE. So today's learning objectives are to know more about the nervous system of humans and to classify the nervous system, to compare the functions of different parts of the human brain, to understand the significance of reflex arc, to study about phytohormones, which are plant hormones, and their classification, to understand why the stem of a plant bends towards light, to know the location of endocrine glands in the human body, the hormones they secrete, and functions of those hormones. So let's begin. This topic, control and coordination, is very important, because see, everything has to happen in a coordinated way. Imagine a condition where you are smelling, you are getting an odd smell, and you identify that it is an LPG gas leak. What will be your response? You will realize that you should not on the switches. You should be very careful. You should not light any matchstick, not light even a lighter. So the correct response should be given by our body. How is our body able to give the correct response? It is given by the two systems in the human body. One is nervous system and the other one is endocrine system. So that is what you are going to study in this particular topic. Let's start off. We'll first deal with the nervous system, then start off with the endocrine system. So, which are the parts of the nervous system in human beings? You can see the nervous system is subdivided into three parts as central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and autonomic nervous system. Let's see the parts of the central nervous system. It is the brain and the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord which follows. The brain is protected by the skull, which is also called cranium. Now, in between that skull, that bony structure called the skull, and the brain, there are three membranes which are called meninges. And between them there is a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. So that's the main part of the central nervous system, the brain. Also there is the spinal cord. The spinal cord, which continues after the brain from somewhere in your neck region, it is continuing. It is protected by the vertebral column, or what we call the backbone. Next we move on to the peripheral nervous system. It consists of various nerves. We can classify nerves as efferent or efferent. Efferent nerves will carry impulses towards the nervous system, that is, towards the brain or towards the spinal cord. Whereas efferent nerves will carry impulses away from the brain or the spinal cord. Also, we can classify them as cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Cranium. So, cranial nerves are the ones which are associated with the brain. They arise from the brain. And spinal nerves, as the name implies, they are associated with the spinal cord. Here is the basic cell of the nervous system. It is called the neuron. the neuron. It doesn't look like a normal cell, normal rectangular cell. You can see it is having a main cell body which is called the soma, and there are many smaller structures which are called the dendrons, and one of those structures is very long and it is called the axon. You can see the dendrons are subdivided into smaller structures called dendrites, and the axons are divided into axonites which have the nerve endings. And again you find this long axon is covered by a sheath. That sheath is called the myelin sheath. Synapse is the junction between two neurons. Now let's see the parts of the brain. The human brain can be divided into three main parts: the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The front part, that is the forebrain, the middle part, that is the midbrain, and this lower part, that is the hindbrain. Here you see an actual figure of the human brain. Now whenever I see this figure of the human brain, I think about leadership qualities, because it is the brain which acts as a leader in your body. It controls all actions in your body. Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling thirsty? Do you feel like you are feeling giddy? Do you feel like studying? Do you feel fear? Then, in the case of a pregnant lady, when it is time for delivery, she will feel the delivery pain. So, forming that delivery pain. So, any such action is done by the human brain. It is like a leader in your body. Now, let us see the parts, the functions of the three parts in detail. We will see about forebrain, which is the biggest part, which is called the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the biggest part. It helps in thinking and memory. It perceives sensory impulses from the receptors. You know, you have various receptors like the skin, the eyes, the nose, the tongue. So, various sensations you are feeling, like maybe touch, pain, the sense of sight, smell, taste. So, all those receptors are sending their messages to the cerebrum part, that is the forebrain. It has association areas which can interpret that information. It can respond properly to that information. See, once it gets the message, it must respond properly, isn't it? For example, when you got that smell of the LPG, you realize that this is not the time for partying. This is not even the time for switching on any switch, because that could lead to a massive explosion. So, the correct measures have to be taken, like opening the windows to let out the LPG, or dialing a person, dialing the fire force. Like that, you have to take the correct action. So, based on the sensations you get, the correct response should be given. That is decided by the forebrain. It has also areas associated with hunger. Very often you feel that rumbling sensation in your stomach. You feel like eating food. Even that sensation of hunger is determined by the forebrain. Now let's see the functions of the hindbrain. The hindbrain has two very important parts, the cerebellum and the medulla oblongata. Cerebellum and the medulla oblongata. Let's see their functions. Cerebellum will help you in walking in a straight line, walking erect. It will control the posture and body balance. It will help in precise voluntary actions, like even holding a pencil. Moving to the other part, medulla. See, it is controlling many activities in your body like blood pressure, salivation. It even has a center for vomiting. Now we move on to another topic, reflex action. We can define it as a sudden involuntary action done in case of an emergency. And interestingly, it is not done by the brain because it's an emergency and there isn't much time. Quickly a response has to be given. So it is done by the spinal cord. Even sneezing. When you are standing in a dusty environment, you sneeze. Even that is an example for a reflex action. Another one is like you were sitting in a dark room, maybe a film theater, and all of a sudden the lights come on. Then to protect your eyes, you immediately blink your eyes. You can't open it for some time. That is another reflex action. Okay, so those reflex actions, they are controlled by the spinal cord. Now there is a pathway through which reflex action occurs. That pathway is called the reflex arc. Here is a figure of the reflex arc. A very simple situation, many of you must have experienced it also. A person, you can see a person's hand and he has touched a hot object, a hot pan in this case. Now immediately the person withdrew the hand. After withdrawing only, that person is realizing that the pan was hot. So see how that withdrawing of the hand happened. As soon as the person touched the hot pan, the receptors on his fingertips, those heat receptors know the sensation. So the first action is taken by the receptor, which will understand that it's an emergency. So it is sending it through the sensory neuron towards the spinal cord, and the spinal cord immediately understood that this is an emergency situation. It can't wait. It can't ask the big boss, that is the brain. So it decides to take immediate action. So you can see a reverse message is going through the relay neuron in the spinal cord. Here you can see the spinal cord. So the sensory neuron went to the spinal cord. It relays that information through the relay neuron, takes it through another neuron called the motor neuron towards the effector. Effector here is a muscle in the arm. See, when you touch that hot pan, if the reverse message went to your fingertips, they can't do anything. But if the reverse message went to the muscle, then immediately that muscle can contract. When it is contracting, automatically you are withdrawing the hand. So that is this pathway, which is called the reflex pathway. Once again, here's a flow chart of the parts of a reflex arc. Have a look. It starts with the receptor, then goes to the sensory neuron, which is bringing in the sensations towards the brain or spinal cord. Third, it reached the spinal cord. The spinal cord identifies the emergency situation, so gives the message to the relay neuron. Then quickly it is conveyed through the motor neuron to the effector, which takes the action, the effect, that is withdrawing the hand. So that's a flow chart of reflex arc. So much about nervous system in human beings. So we saw the brain and the spinal cord. Now we are moving on to the next topic, which is tropism. Tropism in plants. Plants will not have any elaborate nervous system like human beings, like other animals, humans or other animals. Okay? However, they will show what is called tropism. Tropism means movement of plant parts towards a stimulus or away from a stimulus. A very good example for that is the stem of a plant bending towards light. Especially if you keep it in a room, sunlight will be coming only from one direction. So if you kept it near the window, you can see all the plants are bending towards the light, towards the area where there is sunlight. So that's an example for tropism. It is the movement of plant parts towards or away from a stimulus. Now the tropism can be either positive or negative. Positive or negative. Positive means the movement of the plant part is towards the stimulus. But if it is moving away from the stimulus, that is called negative tropism. Negative tropism. So let's classify tropism. Mainly these 5. Phototropism. Just now I mentioned about the plant stem bending towards light. Photo means light. So that is phototropism, response to light. The second one is geotropism. Geotropism, which is response to gravity. Response to gravity, the attraction of the earth. So roots we can say are positively geotropic, whereas the stem is negatively geotropic. The response to water is called hydrotropism. Hydrotropism. Another term which you may not be familiar with, thigmotropism. Thigmo means touch. There is response even to touch. So that is thigmotropism. We will be seeing examples for that. And the last one is chemotropism. Chemotropism, which is response to chemicals. Have a look at this. You must be identifying this particular plant. We commonly call it touch me not. The scientific name is mimosa. So when we touch the mimosa plant, it will immediately fold its leaves like this. Now that's an example for negative thigmotropism. It doesn't like that touch, so immediately it will fold its leaves. Yet another example of the sundew plant, which you know is a carnivorous plant. It is a carnivorous plant. So what happens? It has these dewdrops, which are something like dewdrops, which are actually sweet liquid emanated from the plant, and because of this sweet liquid, many insects will come and alight on it. The minute these hair-like structures feel the insect, immediately they will close upon it like this. So the insect is trapped. So that we can say is an example for positive thigmotropism. Now you must be interested why this particular plant has trapped that insect. See, it is capable of photosynthesis. It is having the green parts. It can prepare its own food. But you know that by photosynthesis, it will be able to make only starch. When it gets an animal and traps it and digests the body and then consumes it, it is also getting proteins. This is an example for chemotropism. that is towards chemicals. In another chapter, reproduction, you would have studied about the female part, the carpel. So, you identify the stigma, style and the ovary with the ovules. So, there you find after pollination, some pollen grains have fallen on the stigma and the pollen tube is growing out. It is carrying the male gametes, the two male gametes, and the pollen tube is moving down through the stigma, style, and when it reaches near the ovary, it will be, see, it is not moving further down, it is bending and entering into the embryo sac. Why did it bend? Because there were chemicals released from the embryo sac which will guide it towards the embryo sac for fertilization. Next we move on to another topic, phytohormones, that is plant hormones. So, let us see the phytohormones. We classify them into two types as growth promoting hormones or growth inhibiting hormones. From the name itself it is clear. This group, it will promote growth in plants, whereas the second group, it is causing aging, it is inhibiting growth. And let us see the examples. Growth promoting hormones are auxin, gibberellin and cytokinin, whereas the growth inhibiting hormones are ethylene and abscisic acid. Let us see more details. Why do plants need such hormones? Let us see. We will start off with positive phototropism. We will try to find out why the plant is bending towards sunlight. You see over here, the stem is bending towards light. We will try to analyze why it is bending towards light. The reason is this, the plant hormone called auxin, that growth promoting hormone called auxin. Now, auxin is created a lot, synthesized a lot in the growing tips of the plant, especially the shoot tip. There you find a lot of auxin molecules. I have shown it here in pink color, the auxin. Now you see, sunlight is coming from one direction. So what has happened to the auxin? You see in the second picture, the auxin has moved to the shaded part. Since sunlight is falling from here, the auxin has moved to the other part. Now where there is auxin, there is more growth happening. So when more cells are formed in that part and lesser cells there, so naturally it is causing bending of the stem as the stem is elongating. So we feel like the plant is bending towards light. So let us see more details about the functions of these three growth promoting hormones. We will start with auxin. It helps in bending of the stem towards light. Another function is it helps cells to grow longer at the tip. See, the plant is able to grow in height because of the auxin. Yeah. Gibberellin, like auxin, helps in the growth of the stem. And the third one, cytokinin, it promotes cell division and it is found in areas of rapid cell division like in fruits and seeds, fruits which become bigger or seeds which break their dormancy and they are beginning to grow. So in all those places you will find more of cytokinin because it is promoting cell division. Let us look at the two growth inhibiting hormones in plants, ethylene and abscisic acid. Ethylene is a gaseous plant hormone. It inhibits growth. It is what causes ripening of fruits or plant parts to fall off. You will see that older leaves, older fruits, branches and all are falling off. That happens because of ethylene. Now, abscisic acid, it is called the stress hormone in plants. Stress hormone in plants. Now, plants don't have stress like human beings, the kind of stress we experience, like maybe getting an exam paper in which you have flunked, things like that. They have a different set of stress, environmental stress, like when it is too hot or too cold, then the plant has to survive. Also when there is lack of water. So that is when abscisic acid comes into play, because it is the stress hormone in plants. It causes wilting of leaves. When there is no water, you can see the leaf of the plant which was standing properly will droop down. That is called wilting. That is happening because of abscisic acid. It will also inhibit growth. So those two, ethylene and abscisic acid, they are the growth inhibiting hormones. That much about endocrine system in plants. Now we are going to endocrine system in human beings. We'll start off with endocrine glands of man. In this symbolic picture, you can see the location of all endocrine glands in the human body, and a few of them you are going to study in detail. So let's look at the head part, the brain part. Hypothalamus, that's a vital area which is controlling all the endocrine glands in the human body. Then again in the brain there is another gland called pineal gland. Pineal gland. And below the brain, arising from a stalk, is a small pea-shaped gland which is called the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. Then look at the neck region. You find the thyroid, and behind it there will also be the parathyroid glands. In the chest region, you have an endocrine gland called thymus. Now, near to the stomach, there is the pancreas. That is an endocrine gland. Pancreas, we can say, is a mixed gland. Mixed because it is both endocrine and exocrine. It is secreting some hormones, and it is also having tubes. The pancreatic juice is secreted through those tubes into the part of the small intestine called duodenum. So pancreas, we can say, is a mixed gland. And above the kidneys, you find there are the triangular adrenal glands. Adrenal, or it's also called suprarenal, because it is above the kidney. Supra means above, infra means below. So suprarenal, or the adrenal gland. Then again, if it is a male, testis, it can secrete hormones like testosterone. Similarly, ovaries in female can secrete estrogen and progesterone. So that gives you an outline of the endocrine glands in the human body. Let us study some of them in detail. We will start off with the adrenal glands. From this picture, it is evident the position is above the kidneys, and we have a pair of kidneys. They are located on the back side, on either side of the vertebral column. So located above the kidneys, there is this very vital gland called adrenal gland or the suprarenal gland. It secretes a vital hormone called adrenaline. Adrenaline, which is known as the stress hormone in animals. So let us see. Adrenaline hormone is secreted by adrenal glands above the kidney. It is called the stress hormone in animals because it helps us to face stressful situation, to properly get away from the stressful situation by the 2 F's, either fight or flight. if you feel you are competent enough, you can beat the enemy, then you will stand there, stand your position and fight with the enemy. But if you know that your condition is not so good, the enemy is too strong, then you will not do the stupidity of standing there and fighting. You will take flight, escape from that area. So, it is adrenaline which will help you decide whether to fight or take flight. Now, whatever it is, whether you are standing there and fighting or you are escaping from that area, certain changes happen in your body which are brought about by the secretion of adrenaline. I am sure all of you must have experienced it. Maybe there is some danger, a dog running towards you with its teeth snarled and ready to bite you. Or maybe you are about to get an answer paper and you have flunked in that exam, you haven't done well, all others have done well except you. At that time you have the sensation of butterflies in your stomach. That sensation is exactly caused by adrenaline. And see the physiological changes in your body. The heart beats faster. Yes, when you are tense, the heartbeat becomes faster. You can actually hear that lub-dub. Breathing rate increases because your body needs more oxygen. So, more oxygen is supplied to the muscles because there is more breathing. And one more thing, blood from the digestive system and skin are diverted to the skeletal muscles because either your legs or your hands will be functioning when you are running away from that area or when you are fighting with the opponent. Moving on to the next gland in your neck region, which is called the thyroid gland. You can see here the thyroid gland, and behind them you can find the 4 parathyroid. Thyroxine hormone is secreted by the thyroid gland in the neck region. The mineral iodine is essential for the thyroid gland to function properly, and if there is lack of iodine, that will affect the thyroid gland. You can actually see it swell up, and that condition is called goiter. Now, what's the function of thyroxine hormone in your body? This one. It regulates carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism in the body so as to provide best balance for growth. So, here you see a lady having goiter. You can see that unusually large swelling in her neck region. That condition is called goiter. Many a time you can prevent this condition just by having iodized salt. You were not of this size when you were in first standard. You were very small then. How did you grow taller, bigger, stronger? That's because of the growth hormone, GH, which is secreted by the pituitary gland in the base of your brain. And what's the function of GH? It regulates growth and development of the body, and deficiency of GH in childhood can even cause problems like dwarfism. Too much of that is also bad because you have a problem called gigantism. Here you see the picture of a giant. This is not Photoshop, it's a real picture. This person has become unusually tall. All others are normal size, okay, normal human beings size. This person is unusually tall because he is a giant, because he had too much production of growth hormone in childhood. Another giant, and along with him you can see a dwarf also. Moving on to the next hormone, which is insulin. Insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas. I told you pancreas is a mixed gland. It can secrete pancreatic juice through the pancreatic duct, and it has an endocrine part also, which is secreting hormones. So, that endocrine part is called the islets of Langerhans. It is the beta cells in the islets of Langerhans that secretes the hormone insulin. We can call insulin a hypoglycemic hormone. Hypo means less, glycemia, that is sugar. So, insulin is helping to bring down your blood sugar. See, when you have laddu, cakes, sweets, all that sugar has gone into your body, and when digestion is completed in the small intestine and when it is absorbed through the villi, there is a chance that your blood sugar will shoot up. Abnormally high it will become. But that does not happen because there is insulin to bring down the blood sugar. It reduces the blood sugar by converting the excess sugar into glycogen. Sugar can't be stored, but glycogen can be stored in the muscles and liver. And lack of insulin can cause a disease called diabetes. Testosterone is the main male hormone. It helps to produce sperms and it also gives masculine characters to a man. Whereas estrogen is found in female, it helps to produce ovum and also gives feminine characters. So, last, what are the values to be imbibed from this chapter? I spoke about leadership qualities of the brain or teamwork of both the endocrine system and the nervous system. Even if one is lacking, our body will not be normal. Both of them have to work as a team. Forward thinking. We saw the forward thinking of spinal cord which helped to protect us from that hot object, from getting burnt. So, you are knowing beforehand, forward thinking. And scientific attitude. You see, so many chemicals in your body having so much effect. So, these are the values you children must imbibe. Thank you, children.